Hello, America. You're watching Liquid Lunch on Newsmax TV. I'm Frank Morano. Wait a minute. Don't change the channel just yet. The proper host of this program, who joined us via Skype from Florida yesterday, is back. He's still in Florida, but he has decided he's made time in his busy schedule to join us for his own show for the next 2 hours in their entirety. John, how is the weather down there?
Oh, Frank, it's muggy and humid, but nice and sunny and warm. The Newsmax studios down here are beautiful. Getting to meet all the folks that listen to us every single day, and everyone is waiting patiently for me to get out of their office. But I'm looking forward to getting back to you as well. But great things are happening down here. I'm looking at the markets today, Frank, where you are back in New York. The Dow is down just a few points today, just dipped under that 27,000 number. And Bitcoin, while it dipped under 8,000 yesterday, is up a couple hundred and at 8,100 and change. So I think we're okay with the markets. And now this letter circulating from Trump to Erdogan, I think that might be annoying the markets just a little bit, but I'm sure we'll get into all that stuff later. How are things with you? I'm sure you miss me terribly.
I do miss you, actually, and things are great, and there's a ton of news. We're going to get to all of it. I am interested to see what happens with this EU situation and how that affects the markets. Now, just within the last couple of minutes, we have a little bit of breaking news that the UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson has worked out a Brexit deal with the European Union. So now Parliament, who has shown no willingness to vote on any sort of Brexit deal, is going to vote on this deal on Saturday. So that leaves them with basically a choice of adopting this Johnson-EU deal, which looks pretty good to me. It's good for the EU, good for Great Britain, or they can call new elections, or they can not have a deal and just go forward with a hard Brexit in a couple of weeks. So I'm curious what impact that's going to have on the global financial markets.
Well, I think, we saw this gridlock going on over in the UK, and I think the will of the people was what caused Brexit, okay? It was a populist movement, and I think when the global markets see the people voted for something and the government that administers their will is blocking it, I think that was like kind of hurtful in some ways on the geopolitical side. And I think a deal that is signed that does what the people wanted, a Brexit, is going to be good for the markets overall. And, all these other little nits and gnats that they got to work out, I'm sure they're going to figure it out. But I think the global markets will say, okay, fine, we have certainty. There's a Brexit. And I've said this so many times on the show, Frank. The thing markets hate the most is uncertainty. Is there a Brexit? Is there not a Brexit? Is there going to be a vote? Is there not going to be a vote? That makes people cautious. Big institutions, hedge funds, money managers, they get cautious when they don't know what's going to. There's uncertainty, and some certainty, I think, will be a dose of good health for the global markets.
Well, it's going to be interesting. Speaking of the EU, right now in Washington, D.C., our Ambassador Sondland to the EU is testifying with the impeachment investigators. Now, I've got a big problem with this. If we had my Frankly Speaking open, I would say this is the subject that I would be speaking frankly about. But let me just tell you why this so grates on me, right? We are paying for these hearings. We're paying the salaries of every single one of these impeachment investigators. We're paying the salary of the ambassador that's testifying behind closed doors. We're paying the salary of the staff of all the people involved. And yet, this is totally closed to the public. At what point are the American people going to stand up and say, and I don't care whether you want the president impeached or not, but at what point are the American people going to stand up and say, we have a right to see these hearings, we're paying for them, let's see them on television, put them on C-SPAN, put them on Newsmax. It's amazing to me that I'm the only one that seems to care that this impeachment is so far being conducted in secret behind closed doors.
Well, I care too, Frank, and the American people should care, and we should, there should be some more outrage about it because, frankly speaking, to coin your term, pun intended, like you said, we're paying for this stuff. And Donald Trump said to Nancy Pelosi, hey, you want to talk to my people? There's no unofficial impeachment inquiry. Take a vote, tell me you're impeaching me, and then start your investigation. Until you do that, I don't want to hear from you. And now there's no official impeachment inquiry, and they're bringing our people, Trump's people in to talk and testify on the road behind closed doors. Someone, my old friend Harvey Pitt once said, sunlight is the best disinfectant. And if you're trying to do something and tell us that Donald Trump has done something so bad that it rises to high crimes and misdemeanors, then put the guy out in front of Congress like they do with everybody else, put the lights on, and let us, the taxpayers, see what's happening.
Now,
I'm with you, pal.
Well, thank you, John. And I wish the American people would stand up and actually give 2 cents about this, because I'm amazed that the public disinterest in whether or not these hearings are public. To me, it's dumbfounding. However, John, I do want to get your take on what we learned, because everybody involved in the impeachment inquiry leaks like a sieve. Let me get your take on what we learned from Ambassador Sondland today. Apparently, Ambassador Sondland broke sharply from President Trump, and he told the impeachment investigators that he opposed the president's request to run Ukraine policy through his personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani. Quote, "We were also disappointed by the president's direction that we involve Mr. Giuliani," close quote, in a quote that was leaked to Politico. What do you think this means, John, now that Trump's own ambassador, a current ambassador, is publicly breaking from his story on Ukraine Gate?
Well, Frank, let's go back. Let's think about this, okay? You're holding the meetings behind closed doors, so we don't know what's being said. And then some of these people, and the Democrats are in charge, so they should be buttoning up these secret closed-door meetings pretty well, but yet they leak things out. And what they leak out is always favorable to them. Like they were going to impeach Trump until the leaks were so quid pro quo. But then when the whole text of the conversation came out, there was no quid pro quo. And when the text came out between the ambassador and others, there was one text that said specifically, the president has been crystal clear. There will be no quid pro quo. So I don't believe any of these leaks until I see something out in front of me. And it's convenient that what gets leaked is always beneficial to the Democrats. That's the way I see it. And until we see the real stuff, there's been so many games being played. Adam Schiff has to backtrack and say, I'm sorry, that was a mistake. There were leaks coming out of the Intelligence Committee on the Russia probe. Adam Schiff was up there saying, from what I heard behind closed doors, there is more than enough evidence to impeach the president, and obstruction of justice. Turned out nothing there. There's always smoke and there's never fire, and it's usually the smoke is from the leaks. Like the smoke on the Russia probe was the dossier, and then we find out the dossier came from Perkins Coie and Steele, and it all goes back to Hillary. This has been a manufactured attempt at a coup since Donald Trump was elected. Every single way they try to figure out how to get him and overturn the election. And like we were talking about Brexit, Frankie, we the people voted. Donald Trump won. He hasn't been able to govern freely in 3 years because since he's been in, the Congress has done nothing except be on his back and try to figure out ways to overturn an election. And I think the American people are being done such an injustice. You look at the things our president's getting done right now with the media and the Democrats on his back every single minute of every single day. Imagine if they let this guy work without all these distractions for a month or two.
Well, what's interesting to me, John, and I think the fact that you bring up Brexit is right on the money, because what I could understand Congress obstructing the president and his agenda because they were actually elected to do so. But unfortunately, what we're seeing in both the UK and in the United States is people trying to go out of their way to save the voters from themselves. In the Trump administration, what did we see? We saw people in his own administration, not elected by anybody, writing these anonymous op-eds to the New York Times, talking about how they're trying to subvert the president's agenda. We saw people talking about recording him so that they could try to invoke the 25th Amendment to prove to everybody that he was crazy. And a new book,
Rosenstein, let's not forget that.
But a new book shows that at least 2 cabinet members were on board with that, and we have a Supreme Court that will repeatedly declares laws unconstitutional, whether they're passed by Congress or state legislatures. So you have to ask, why does Parliament in the UK feel the need to save the voters from themselves? Why does the Supreme Court and these unelected bureaucrats in the United States feel the need to save the voters from themselves? Ultimately, the voters are going to have to be responsible for our own decisions. Politicians, judges, bureaucrats watching should know it's not your job to save us from our own decisions.
No one, you're on the money, Frank. No one asked them to do what they want because they think they know what's best for us. That's why in the UK and here there are democratic processes in place, and when the people vote, this is like these are the 4 corners. This is a Sanskrit of democracy. The people voted. This is clearly what they said. We want this guy as our president. We don't want to be part of the EU. We want to exit. This is what the people have said. Time and time again, we're seeing these bureaucrats with these low approval. Congress has like a 20% approval rating, and they know better than us. No. What we know is, first of all, they were supposed to be part-time workers who go there and express the wills and views of their people who voted for them. Now they're career bureaucrats who have decided that they know what's best for us. No, we voted. Give us what we voted for.
All right, John, we have an action-packed show. Martha Bonetta is coming up. Nico Romano with, now I understand the opening for Time Out with Nico Romano is now about 5 minutes long, this pre-produced open. So we're looking forward to hearing his football picks for those of us that like to gamble. And we're going to talk with our favorite employment attorney, Jonathan Bell, and our favorite conservative attorney, Taisha Powell, throughout the program. John is in Florida. I'm here in New York, but we're both with you, bring you all the latest news that you need to know about that's affecting the markets and that it's affecting politics and your lives. So stay tuned. Go nowhere. You're watching Liquid Lunch on Newsmax TV. We've got a great show for you. We'll be right back.